and me. Galaxy equalizer, ready like Freddy, and Studio Galaxy 473 in Confero. We freedom of speech is sacrosanct. Make use of it. Let no one challenge. Blow your shell, beat your drum, tell others. Like and share, subscribe and discuss it too. Let the world know Studio Galaxy is around. Galaxy in Confero, hope you know. 473 standing strong is yours, you know. The medium, an opportunity for you. Make your contribution, let them know. Blow your shell, beat your drum, tell others. Like and share, subscribe and discuss it too. Let the world know Studio Galaxy is a road. Chinese and lucky like we. Iran and North Korea wish they had it too. Most of Caribbean lucky like we. Studio Galaxy Day for you and me. Blow your shell, beat your drum, tell others. Like and share, subscribe and discuss it too. Let the world know Studio Galaxy is around. Studio Galaxy in Confero, hope you know. 473 standing strong is yours, you know. The medium, an opportunity for you. Make your contribution, let them know. Democracy in Spice Isles is alive and well. Ask you questions, sing and beat you drum. Make you suggestions, encourage them on to walk the straight and narrow in the land. Politics, religion and economic issue, regional, international, spiritual issues too. Agricultural, environmental and trending to subject matter. We fear none, we back down. Freedom of speech is enshrined in the land. God, we freedom, jealous and day in Cuba. Russians and Chinese and lucky like we. Iran and North Korea wish they had it too. Most of the Caribbean lucky like we. Studio Galaxy Day for you and me. Galaxy equalizer, ready like Freddy, and Studio Galaxy 473 in Confero. We freedom of speech is sacrosanct. Make use of it. Let no one challenge. Blow your shell, beat your drum, tell others. Like and share, subscribe and discuss it too. Let the world know Studio Galaxy is around. Galaxy in Confero, hope you know. 473 standing strong is yours, you know. The medium, an opportunity for you. Make your contribution, let them know. Blow your shell, beat your drum, tell others. Like and share, subscribe and discuss it too. Let the world know Studio Galaxy is a road.
Welcome our brothers, welcome sisters. We are on the second part of our program for today, Saturday. And you are with the Galaxy Equalizers on Studio Galaxy 473 in Conference. Remember, you could always subscribe to our program. We plead with you, subscribe to our program. We need a blind. And you could call us on that subject matter. Did the end justify the means in 1979 to 1983 coup d'état in Grenada? It was a significant period in our history, and we must remember it. And as we discuss the issue, we must be open and practical, because we have to provide answers for the next generation. Today in our society, the memory of the 1979 coup d'état is still fresh. A number of the players are still alive. A number of the heroes and the victims are still alive. People are still trying to justify the correctness of the revolution, as some call it. And some people are still saying it was not justified. It took place. So I'm asking the question, did the end justify the means in the 1979-1983 coup d'état? I welcome and encourage your comments. You don't have to agree with me on that. I believe then it was not justified. It was not necessary. It was illegal, and it should never have taken place. But that is history. And that is my position. And I may be prejudiced, particularly if I did not support what was going on from the opposition point of view at day one. You see, in 1976, we had an election. Election was tough and tight. Eric Gary won 9 seats. Eric Gary and the Grenada United Labour Party. And the alliance, led by Maurice Bishop, won 6 seats. There was no question of illegality in the election. The alliance have always had a battery of lawyers, and they claim they were good lawyers. Eric Gary didn't come from a background of the intelligentsia. So the intelligentsia was always hostile towards Eric Gary. Derek Knights was perhaps Gary's main lawyer, minister without portfolio. Grenadian companies didn't want to see Derek Knights, because as far as they're concerned, Derek Knights ought not to have been in Gary camp. He was an intelligent man, and he was a lawyer. The utterances, the expressions, the statements, when referring to Gary's supporters, was very demeaning. It's easy to call them dunce and stupid and illiterates and stinking Garyites and cadavers. But they won the election. So I believe that the armed overthrow of the legitimate government was not right. It was incorrect. Why What was the justification then that the alliance projected for overthrowing Gary? One was freedom of expression. They said Eric Gary smothered freedom of expression. One of the things Gary did, he passed a law that to open a newspaper in the country, you have to deposit $20,000 with the Treasury. So that in the event that you are held for libel, you can say you don't have money. Gary would have had a number of cases against individuals for libel, and they just declared bankrupt. So they didn't pay him any money, and they continue with the libelous statement. In addition to that, the opposition spoke a lot about the secret police. And I'm going to use the harsh term, Tonton Makut. Because that was the name it was called in Haiti, the Tonton Makut. And they said Gary had the secret police and used them. The correct name, Gary called them the Voluntary Constabularies for the Protection of Human Rights. And I also remember, prior to 1974, independence, the opposition had industrial action for 1 month straight. Every day, demonstrations in different parishes. And one day, Gary came and called the Voluntary Constabularies for the Protection of Human Rights. He said, each one bring a friend. Tell a friend to bring 3 friends. No women, no children. Maurice Bishop and the Alliance was demonstrating in town. Gary must go right now. And some other songs, Gary, where are you? Gary hiding in Mount Royal and other issues. These individuals went to Gary meeting in Mount Royal, and from the meeting, they went to St. George's. Gary tell them they're going to take the bus in the market. Gary definitely knew that 300 to 1,500 and the number of individuals would depend on who you speak to in Grenada and their political inclination. So if you speak to a hardline Gary right, he go tell you just about 300. And if you speak to a Jewel member, he go tell you it's about 1,500 men. So let's cut it in half. Let's say 700 to 800. No women, no children. Remember, Maurice Bishop never go on a demonstration without children and women. And that is why you will hear us advance the view that Maurice Bishop always hide behind women and children. He like Hamas. He used women and children as a shield. So these two people clash in town. The rest is history. We got independence in the dark of night. In 1979, the Gary government was overthrown. And that is history too. Most of the Caribbean islands leaders was pleased. University graduates was happy. Maurice Bishop was a great orator. He spoke well. And at that time, colonialism, anti-colonialism spirit was the order of the day in the Caribbean. We had the apartheid system in Africa. And Maurice Bishop pounced on topics and subject matter that was very attracted to by the liberators, people in the Caribbean. You had the Black Power movement in Trinidad. You had the issues in Haiti. So Maurice Bishop was a very popular man then. And Grenada had the first armed overthrow of the legitimate government in the Caribbean. But a lot of the leaders in the Caribbean still supported Maurice Bishop. Because remember, Eric Gary was considered as an uneducated little black boy. And the intelligentsia never accepted Gary. And the privilegencia didn't want to see Gary because Gary fought them for the proletariats or the estate workers. At that time, we didn't used to use proletariats. Proletariats is more communist revolutionary word made popular. I asked the question, was the revolution justified? So now we're dealing with some of the actions that took place between 1979 and 1983. When I ask if the end justify the means. About 5,000 people in Grenada went to jail without trial, without a charge, or without an opportunity to defend themselves. You have to understand, Maurice Bishop and the Alliance was championing the cause of freedom of speech, of personal rights and privilege, of the excesses of Gary, of people being beaten by the Mongoose gang. So when Maurice Bishop overthrew Gary, obviously, people thought, now we're going to have free papers. Now people going to have individual rights would be upheld. Now we're going to have free election. Now things will be nice and dandy. The cry of Maurice Bishop in Grenada was not about development. Gary built 28 schools in 13 and a half years. Easter Water Parade, Expo 69, technical education, pre-primary school. Gary was a man that believed in culture and sports. St. George's University, Land for the Landless program, independence, and a number of people benefited from scholarship in Canada, Chile, South Korea. Grenadians went to South Korea to study fishing. Canada absorbed a number of people went on scholarship in Canada. United States of America and other countries. Because Gary believed in education with a passion. When Maurice Bishop came in power, the first alarm bell was freedom of speech. Lloyd Noel was a strong supporter of Maurice Bishop. Lloyd Noel and Leslie Pierre. And they end up in jail. Maurice Bishop jailed Leslie Pierre. He jailed Lloyd Noel. Tillman Thomas was a human rights lawyer. He claimed he was human rights lawyer since in Gary days. Tillman Thomas ended up in jail. Kennedy Boudlal was a member of the Maurice Bishop team. Kennedy ended up in jail. Maurice Bishop punks on Tivoli. And they treated the community very badly. Well, don't talk about Monk Church. 100 and something of them was arrested in one day. There are reports that some of the women in the north, PRA whack on the back. If you want more information, go on a schoolboy. Morris Bishop signed the order. You hear me say over 5,000 people went in jail. But I generally speak about only those Morris Bishop signed the order for. I think it's 3,113. I could make a mistake. So let me say about. If you want the exact number, ask Tillman Thomas. He was a human rights lawyer. So he must know the exact number. We heard about the castration of detainees and the removal of detainees' toenail and the fingernail. Bobby Clark from Barbados. It was said that he was one of the men in charge of torture. And Dr. Nuss Gittins was always around the victims who was tortured. When Broker was castrated, and he begged a day or two after for a doctor, they sent him Dr. Nuss Gittins. He was washed with a hose, swept with a coconut broom, and he was told he was well attended. Some of the policemen toenails that were ponged out, when they cry out in pain, Dr. Nuss Gittins gave them some painkiller. But she didn't give them water. She told them, use your saliva. We ask this question, did the end justify the means? We have the sister from Burge Grove. She was a supporter, but she was executed. They rolled on the vehicle. She was on the passenger side. She alone in the transport. They said she drive the vehicle. She was not known to have a license or ever drive a vehicle. She was the wife of a man that couldn't sneeze. Many men within the camp accused Morris Bishop as a womanizer. There are stories that Morris Bishop had a subject in St. Patrick's. And when he went to have an important caucus with her spouse had to stay outside on the step with his hand on his chin. And when Morris Bishop caucus was ended, the individual was intimidated enough that he had to wave Morris Bishop while the soldiers in the yard were watching him. I've always described Morris Bishop as a common criminal. Lack empathy. Didn't know anything about compassion. Imagine you have an important caucus with a man, wife, or spouse, to be more correct. But he had to go outside and wait on the step. And when he was going, he better prepare to wave you. This was what we had in Grenada. I asked the question, did the end justify the means? The denial of personal rights, the denial of freedom of the press, the discriminatory acts against people for job opportunities and training. You could have been quiet as a lamb. That was not enough for the revolution. So if you was not involved in the mass organization, they would have seen you as a counter. You couldn't be a principal of a school. They was very concerned that the principals of the schools had to be strong supporters of the revolution. So all new principals was there. But those principals of school that was not strong supporters of the mass organization, they would send teachers in that school that will have the power, and they would turn them relentlessly. Those principals would be afraid of the individuals. There was one instance when a principal of school was instituted. The chief education officer who went to the school to institute the new principal then went back to the acting person was there, and he shed tears. He said, boy, I don't know about you, but I'm trying everything to leave this country. Eventually, he fled the country. He said, I can't stand it. He said, they don't tell me nothing, but I can make it again. You see, we always have to ask the question, did the end justify the means? If we don't ask this question, we doom to make the mistakes of the past. The attack on the church and people's belief was not spared. The undermine and shattering of parental control on the children. They used to say the flowers of the revolution. That was the pioneers and other young militia group. So you 17 or you 18 or you 16-year-old daughter that joined the militia group, some parents cannot squeak as they watch her with tears in their eyes as she jumped the PRA vehicle to keep guard in the night. The village would whistle in silence that she was a PRA mattress. That was the description of a lot of young women in the community that was enveloped in the mass organization that they were PRA mattress. It may not have been true. But when you have lack of information and the gun barrel in your head, rumors and speculation run wild. I spoke about the attacks on the church. The traditional churches, particularly the Catholics, the Anglicans, the Methodists, the hierarchy of these churches was very supportive of the revolution in the early stages. But remember, the revolution was like a serpent. It eats its children. And when Lloyd Noel and Leslie Pierre, they were strong church members, and Dr. Japal and others was being put in prison, and the cross in Fort Frederick, I believe, was destroyed, a symbol of the church. People in the church turned to the bishop, Sidney Charles, the Trinidadian who just come, to reach Maurice Bishop. Maurice Bishop treated Sidney Charles with the scantiest of courtesy. If you tell him come to the meeting 2:30, When 5 o'clock, he cancel the meeting. If you tell him come to the meeting 2:30, when 4:30, he cancel the meeting. When Sidney Charles visit the prison, and the individuals put a case to Sidney Charles, I've heard some stories where some men cried and they say there is no hope. They saw no hope in the eyes of Sidney Charles. Sidney Charles sent to Rome for assistance. He was not able to reach Maurice Bishop. The Coup Detate in 1979, 1983 did not believe in God. They did not believe in religion. They did not believe in the strength of families. They claim that religion is the opium of the people. So every effort was made in this short space of time to destroy the church. The political commotion and their teams was very active in the destruction and dilution of the influence of the church. I am convinced that Maurice Bishop supervised over the worst crimes in Grenada after slavery and colonialism. But that is me. And that is some of the negatives of the revolution. So let us speak about some of the positives of the 1979-1983 coup d'etat, what we call the revolution. And the first one, the international airport. And let's give Bishop all the marks for the international airport. Let's say it's he that had the idea. Let us say it's he that made the blueprint. Let us say it's Maurice Bishop that chose the site. Let us say it's Maurice Bishop that come in a plane and land on the Maurice Bishop Highway to convince Grenadians that the airport could be there. Let's give him everything. The establishing of NIS. Let's give Bishop all that. He that had the idea. The establishing of the National Lottery. Model on the St. Vincent model. And Maurice Bishop continue with education. When you speak about education in Grenada, the master in education is Eric Gary. All other governments after continue with the education process in Grenada. Kit Mitchell was considered as the Prime Minister of Education. More scholarship has been given in Kit Mitchell era than in any selected era in our history. So all other leaders continue with the education process. A number of Grenadians got scholarship in countries that Grenada normally did not used to deal with, like East Germany, like Czechoslovakia, like Russia. The revolution experimented in producing nectar. That was not an economic success. They always try to blow it up as an economic success. But it was a good experiment, run by the government. There was no private sector. They extend the M in NNIB. I think it's Marketing and National Importing Board. So the revolution put the M. It was National Importing Board. The idea in Gary days was to keep the price of some basic goods at a manageable level. Milk, sugar, rice. I don't know what other. But the revolution added the M, marketing. Because of the issues involved, they thought it very necessary to involve marketing. And that was a good thing. You see, we must think with both sides. Now I ask the question, did the end justify the means? St. Vincent have an international airport. St. Vincent don't jail nobody. St. Vincent did not castrate anybody. St. Vincent did not deny the rights of people. St. Vincent didn't close down radio station. And St. Vincent did not supervise over crimes in St. Vincent more than slavery and colonialism. Barbados had an international airport. Barbados always have a stable economy. I never heard Barbados jail people for their belief, or castrate people, or execute people, or walk on women back, or jail Rastafarians. Antigua have an international airport. St. Lucia had two, Iwanora and Fiji. Bermuda had the shortest drawbridge in the world. Now I ask the question, did the end justify the means? When we speak about the glorious revolution, what are we talking about? Glorious for who? For Kenny Larson? Glorious for who? Up to today, we have people who have been mentally challenged as a result of the treatment that they had in 1979, 1983. What's about those Rastafarians? Maurice Bishop promised to legalize weed, you know. Bishop ate with the Rasta. He ate weed food. Bishop smoked with the Rasta. Bishop drank spring water. Bishop sleep in the tent. And then Bishop turned against the Rasta and sent over 300 of them in Cowpen. Up to today, if you listen to some of those Rasta and they tell you the story, tears would come from your eyes. In fact, some of them choking with emotion when they speak about their experience. Some left Rasta completely. Because they eat pork. The pork they used to throw for them and the chicken and all kind of thing. They eat it. They couldn't stand. So they were not able to stand up and face the Rasta men who stood up and refused to eat it. They couldn't. Sometimes when they bring the Rasta them to bed, make them strip naked. One Rasta, he didn't want to go on bed because the PRA kicks in on the manhood. You notice everybody afraid to talk about the treatment of the women? Everybody afraid to speak about the treatment of the women. And some of the women you speak to, And they have the guts to tell you what happened to them. They don't want their children to know. They prefer to die with it. I ask the question today, did the end justify the means? Comrade Ewart Lane and the political commotion, you must tell us the massacre on the foot, the lack of compassion, the lack of empathy. Why? What caused our people to have so much hate in their heart that when Jacqueline Craft showed them she belly, that she was carrying Bishop child, that couldn't save her. They was more ready to wipe out. You see, we did not understand. When we trample on religion and we trample on Christianity, it's Christianity that propagates forgiveness and compassion and empathy and morality and integrity and respect for women and the unborn. They executed them. They take spade and pick up somebody's cadaver. They burn the bodies. But they say the fat one is in trouble to burn. I can't call it the name out of respect for the family. And then they bury the remains. What happened to us as a people? Why? Now I see the upsurge of the extremists in Grenada. Now I see as if are they coming back for vengeance again. Who they blame for the failure? Somoza Marshall. Was it Marshall or Kenneth Kaunda? One of them. Kenneth Kaunda. He accustomed with revolution in Africa. He said the revolution is a serpent. It eats its children. He said your enemy is not away. In those days we used to say, let them come, let them come. Eke speaking Spanish. And Reagan can understand it. He said your enemies is in your footstool. I ask you today, Grenadians, did the end justify the means? I call on my brother Peter. People love you, Peter. You're a nice guy. Be honest with Grenadians and tell them about the Angola option. Ewart Lane today seems to be a very powerful force in the NDC. It is more important now than any other time in our history that we must face the reality and answer the question, did the end justify the means? Were we able to build an international airport without jailing 3,000 people? Were we able to introduce NIS without the Rastafarians, over 300 of them in the cow pen? Were we able to add the M in MNIB without the treatment we did for the women? Some of them begged for water to bathe, blood flowing on their legs. I ask the question, did the end justify the means? We must face the reality as we glorify Maurice Bishop. As this present regime of Deacon Mitchell, a fake, want to plagiarize on the popularity, on the strength, on the achievement of Maurice. Maurice was a great orator. The subject matter he spoke on was opportune and pertinent at the time. But Maurice Bishop was a common criminal. He signed the order for 3,000 and over 100 persons. Ask Tillman Thomas. You will get the correct number. The truth is there. Why we don't want to face the truth? I asked the brothers in the movement, who was the political commotion? Are you rounding up your troops? Why is it you're so silent on your cause? Are you rounding up your troops for what? Is it for vengeance again? Jenny Simon cried out that Jones was used to intimidate her. And many others afraid to cry because they have children in the public service. Some of them wives are crying or don't say nothing. I ask the question, did the end justify the means for the 1979-1983 coup d'etat, the revolutionary experiment in Grenada? Iwatlen, tell the political commotion to inform those guys in the movement why the Angola option. Because the Angola option, our young people must know the significance and the part it played in the most horrendous murder that take place in Grenada. When Vincent Noel was giving out communique, and some people recognize that no one is going to compromise. Some people wondering who in Grenada could intervene to get the two sides to negotiate. Two women named Moscow. Two, not the Bar Association, you know. Those laws only concerned about making money. They never involve in Grenada to settle any dispute. Never. This time, I see there seems to be crowding around Deacon. Because Deacon decide to pay money for good relationship. But I believe it's important that we ask the question, did the end justify the means? All the Grenadian communists, the majority of the Grenadian, only 3 communists here in Grenada now. All of them went to American countries. Well, if America was the great Satan, and America was sabotaging the revolution, and America was counter-revolutionary, and Grenadians who was not involved in the mass organization was suspected of supporting the CIA. Ask yourself the question, how come all the Grenadian communists went to America and Canada? Ask yourself the question. I believe a people deserve the government they have when you have democracy. You can't plead the fifth. You can't plead ignorancy. Ask them, particularly those in the movements. I see some of them in the movement. I happen to know some of them in the movement. Are they summoning? Are the political commotion summoning his army? What would happen to this little country? We have a faithful leader, a master deceiver, a terrorist for the poor, a divider of no mean quality that would contribute to the free fall of our economy. I see how the guardrails are being derailed. I observe the dismantling of the economic discipline put in place. You see how the law is flaunted in the Grenada Development Bank. And ministers raid the bank. So the Prime Minister buys their loyalty by letting them get illegal money. We hear about the rumors in the National Lottery, the worst ever in history. We hear about the corruption galore. I ask the question, did the end justify the means? 100 years from now, what would your children say about you? Would they see you worse than they saw the slave masters? Would they ask, what did our parents do? Why did we permit these things to happen? Maybe none of you ever heard the story of the pioneers, the flowers of the revolution. You think the parents could have say on the pioneers? What were the age of the pioneers? When the pioneer come home with the gun in the bag, what do you think the parents will say? The first one that taking bush is the father. Because generally, the father is the most hated person in the house. Even if he is the provider, he is the most hated person in the home. Because the father generally is expected to be the disciplinarian. When he comes home, mommy tell him what's going on. The children get in trouble. And some of the father believe they have to dispense discipline. So they flog the children. And then the mother hug the children and they find they're crying too much. And when she vexed with the father, she said, the bull go kill you. So generally, the father is the most hated person in the home. And I'm putting it very strong. But when the son comes home with a gun, who you think is the first one going to run? A number of fathers make Trinidad. One of my friends, 7 years after he returned to Grenada, he told me why he left. His stepson come home the Monday after school. He was eating on the table. He pulled out the gun in the pocket, in the bag, and he tell him to move. He said he kindly walk out. He said he hold his shoe in his hand. And he make for his brother. That happened the Monday. The Tuesday he was on the boat for Trinidad. He came back 7 years after. We had another story from Ticolo. a group of young boys on the block. A young girl came to them. They know her well. She was in the same class with them. Encouraged them to join the NYO, I think. National Youth Organization, NYO. And he said, we ain't joining no NYO. Because all you jailing too much of people from Tivoli and Conference. Maybe he was from that area. She said, you're going to hear from me. Or you're going to hear from us. That was a Sunday. When he reached home the night, he go to bed as usual. Monday morning, his mother wake him up. She said, you're going in Trinidad tomorrow. He said, Trinidad? I don't go in Trinidad. The mother say, you did not hear what the girl said? You don't know what she mean by that? They already have a car in the yard, and the aunt and them put him in the dicky to hide him in Granville, to store him away on the boat for Trinidad. He come back 6 years after. Maybe the poor girl didn't do nothing. Because I was in the same school with her. Maybe she never said anything. But that was enough for Trinidad. I asked the question, did the end justify the mean for the 1979-1983 coup d'etat? I see the upsurge in the extreme group in Grenada. The NDC is a medium for the extreme group. I see the growing influence and power of Ewart Lane. And I see the upsurge in the dreams and aspirations of the political commotion. I see the method that is being used to summon the sleeper cells and his troops. I see the tactics of the NDC that is employed today to intimidate, to starve, and to threaten those who dare speak. And I ask the question, did the end justify the means? Remember, Lloyd Noel, Kenny Lalsin, Tillman Thomas, Leslie Pierre, Kennedy Boudlal, all of them, Nyack in Grenville, all of them was strong supporters of the coup d'etat. But all of them end up in jail. My brothers and sisters, thank you for listening today and participating. Remember to subscribe and share. I only provoke discussion. Did the end justify the means?
We fear none, we back down. Freedom of speech is enshrined in the land. God, we freedom, jealous and they in Cuba. Russians and Chinese and lucky like we. Right and North Korea, wish they had it too. Most of the Caribbean, lucky like we. Studio Galaxy Day for you and me. Galaxy Equalizer, ready like Freddy. And Studio Galaxy 473 in Canfero. We freedom of speech is sacrosanct. Make use of it. Let no one challenge. Blow your shell, beat your drum, tell others. Like and share, subscribe and discuss it too. Let the world know. Studio